Okay, well, as I said, welcome to our webinar. We have so much to cover today, and I feel so lucky to have Meet here. Meet is a past student of ours, and he's going to give you a little bit of an introduction to himself, but honestly, we're so lucky to have you here. So thank you for waking up and joining us. Meet, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I come from Central India, everyone. And then I immigrated to Canada to become a physiotherapist in Canada. And that was in 2018. I started my schooling to study fitness and health promotion in Georgian College. And I graduated in 2019. After my graduation there, I started working as a physiotherapy assistant while I was in the process of completing my credentialing process, writing my written components, and registering myself as a resident. And after that, after I completed the process, I started working as a resident physiotherapist with the same clinic that I worked as a PTA for, or the physiotherapy assistant for. I'm still with them. I'm still working with them.
That's a huge compliment that you're still with them and have worked up so much within the company. That's amazing.
Yeah. And then while I was working as a resident physiotherapist, I was promoted as a clinic director of the clinic. And then because of delay in the practical exam, because of all COVID situation, I finally got the chance to attempt an interview. I was able to pass the interview, and then I got my full registration and working as a registered physiotherapist now.
Amazing. Yeah, you definitely had a bumpy ride. I hope everyone in the chat box does not have near as kind of crazy of a process as Meet has had to go through. I will say I got to meet in 2019, I think maybe you contacted us a little bit before that. But that's kind of when we started working with you for the written, and then we got to work with you for the practical, and then the exam didn't happen. So then we got to kind of switch gears and help prep you for the screening exam. So we've had lots of connection and contact with each other. And Meet is one of those people that when he told me he celebrated or when he passed, I feel like I legit celebrated for you. Like I was so invested and so excited. That was amazing. So thanks for sharing that about yourself. I'll kind of explain who I am. Has anyone heard of PT exam prep before, or heard of my name, or no? Any reason why you're here right now? No, I'm kidding. But in the chat box, can you just say like, yes, if you've heard of PT exam prep or myself before? Yes. Okay. Awesome. Oh, Sally, you're so sweet. So my name is Caitlin Proctor. I am a physiotherapist trained out of the University of British Columbia. I graduated in 2013, and the process for Canadians is quite different than internationally educated physios in that we don't have to go through the credentialing process. So that's why I have Meet here, because I don't really have a lot of personal experience with it myself. I definitely talk with a lot of students who are going through this process and have learned a lot through that. But yes, me, myself, haven't done it. I trained, as I said, in 2013. And then after you're done school at a Canadian PT university, you get automatically approved and you just go and write your written. At that time, when I did the written, it was pen and paper. Now it is a virtual exam on the computer. Whether you're doing it in person, you're still doing it on the computer, or you're doing it from the comfort of your home, which is kind of cool too. And then I did the practical exam when it was a face-to-face exam through the CAPR, which we'll talk about a little bit, kind of some of the changes that are happening there. I know people always have questions about that. We'll definitely talk about that. So in 2013, I got a wonderful opportunity to start working with some international physios to help them prep through a really cool invitation through a professor at the University of British Columbia. So I've always been this kind of person that just loves to take knowledge, simplify it, and share it. So like literally from the dawn of when I started my educational journey. That's kind of been my way. So by the time I got to university, I had definitely kind of honed in that skill, and teachers had kind of seen that. And so I got really, really lucky and got some opportunities to work with a bunch of PhD students in Brazil, and India and the UK and Australia. Those were kind of like the 4 places that I originally worked with. And from there, it just kind of grew and grew. And now we're a huge team. We have lots of teachers involved. And yeah, I feel like pretty confident saying that we're definitely the most comprehensive course in Canada. And our pass rate is wicked. So that's awesome. For the screening interview meet, we have 100% pass rate. So I'm happy you're a part of that. Our written exam is really high too. We're at around a 91% pass rate, which is great considering the exam is pretty tricky. So yeah, we offer courses definitely to help with the written, practical, depending on which province you decide to go into. So as I said, I am not a credentialing specialist whatsoever. Neither is Meet, but Meet has been through it. So he is going to be able to talk about it. Where I am a specialist definitely is helping prep for the PCE. So at the end, I'm happy to answer any questions about that at all. So the process of coming to Canada kind of looks like you do your credentialing, you do your PCE, and then you apply for your PT license, which is like the easy part, right? Was that pretty easy applying for your license?
Yeah, that was pretty easy.
That's like the cherry on top, right? You're like, I got this. I can do this part. Okay. So I wanted to share a little bit of information about when I talk to students about why they're coming to Canada. I'll call you candidates because some of you are not students anymore. But why come to Canada? These are kind of the big ones that we hear. So better career opportunities is one of the number one things that we hear about. Superior economic stability compared to other countries, and high work standards for PT. So I'll just kind of say at this point that Canada is dying for physios. Like, I know so many people are worried about finding a job. You are going to be able to find a job. Like, you will. You may have to move to not like a hub city like Toronto or Vancouver. You may have to go a little bit more rural, but you will find a job. And I promise you, if you're in this process and you're having trouble finding a job, reach out to me, because we have clinics almost every day reaching out to us saying, can you please give us one of your students who's interested? We have so many openings. We'd love to work with them. Meet, did you find that at all?
Yeah, I think very often that I would see your story on Instagram, asking that if you want to apply for a job in this particular clinic, please text you on Instagram. So that's very helpful, especially for international PTs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're here and you don't follow us on Instagram, our Instagram is PT Exam Prep, pretty easy. I do try to be fairly active on there, at least with posting. I'm not necessarily the best with stories. I try, but I definitely do post when we get clinics that are really, really looking for people. I do try to post that. So, and it's really easy to connect to. Other reasons why people love to come to Canada is that we have a very high quality of life. Life here is beautiful. I should open up my blinds and show you how nice it is right now. Where you are right now, can you tell me what the weather is like? What's the weather like in where you are?
I'm in Hamilton, Ontario, Caitlin. Mm-hmm. It's 12 degrees, nice and sunny.
Perfect. Nice. Yeah. I mean, I could probably go for like a 23, 24. That's the sweet spot for me. But yeah, I think we're about the same right now. Yeah. No one's telling me what their weather is like. Type in the chat box. Let me know, what's your weather like where you are. Can anyone beat 12 degrees and sunny? Like, we've got some people here from places that are beautiful. So come on. Nope. Everyone's stunned. It's either too early or too late wherever people are. Oh, 12 degrees and sunny. Yeah, Krusha, but that's oh, very, very hot. Yeah, Mumbai, it's boiling hot. Yeah. I was just talking to someone from Pakistan last night, I guess, and they were like, "Oh man, it's crazy here, weather-wise." Okay, yeah, hot. Well, at least we don't have 37 Meet. That's crazy. Otherwise, other reasons why to come to Canada: it's safe and a great place to raise a family. It is safe. It's relatively safe. I feel like we have a really good reputation for being like a really safe, pleasant, friendly, polite country. I don't know. I feel like maybe we boast that a bit too much. Like we have a lot of work to do, but for the most part, it's probably better than some other places, right? And then a straightforward immigration process, which I can't really comment on again, but did you find the immigration process?
Yeah. And because I was researching for so many countries at one point, Caitlin, I think Canada was the only country where all the information related to immigration was readily available on CIC website. And it was very easy for me to understand what they are saying, right? I didn't have to ask immigration expert, immigration lawyer, to essentially tell me what they are saying on the website. So that was really good information and comprehensive there.
What website was that?
cic.gc.ca.
Okay, perfect. So hopefully everyone got that link there if you want to check it out. Okay, last, I'll kind of go through this pretty quick, but I reached out to some people and figured out, asked the question, why PT exam prep? Why choose to go with us? There definitely are other prep programs out there. There's tons, to be honest. But as I said, I do feel really confident that we do have the best reputation, most kind of comprehensive course for sure. We've been doing this the longest by far. So YPD exam prep, a lot of people find us through online search, recommendations from friends, former classmates, and prospective employees, which is wonderful. A lot of people have heard, or people had heard of other programs, but none were as fast as responding or as helpful. That was like such a nice comment when I heard that one, because we do really pride ourselves on trying to be, get back to you and give as much kind of information to you as possible, because we know that it's really hard to get a hold of the CAPR, right? High pass rate, especially with international educated PTs, reliable and responsible. So let's talk about the last player in this. So we have you're coming to Canada, we have that you need to prep, hopefully with us. And then we have the Alliance. So the Alliance is the credentialing and assessment agency on behalf of the Canadian provincial and territory physiotherapy regulators. So pretty much what that means is they are going to take a look at your education. They are then going to assess whether it meets the standards of Canada, and then determine whether or not there is kind of a difference. And if there is, let you know kind of what you need to do to get to where you can come to Canada and take the exam. So really what the overview of credentialing looks like is that if you received your entry to practice physiotherapy outside of Canada, you will need to apply for credentialing assessment. Okay. So this is just to determine if your schooling meets kind of the standards. Now, there's a really great thing here that if you have it, you are fast tracked immediately, and that is called precedent. Okay. So precedent versus non-precedent. Precedent just means that if there isn't a precedent case, your file will be assigned non-precedent, meaning it's going to take a lot longer to get your credentials approved. If you do have precedent, this means that someone with an applicant with similar education to yours has already applied and been approved. So these people need to have a similar degree format to you, similar course, same program, and a close or similar year of graduation. Okay. So if you have that kind of formula together, really what that looks like is, did a person in the year, ahead of me, a year, 2, 3 years ahead of me, have they done this already? Were they approved? If you can answer yes to that, then you have precedent and things are going to move a lot quicker for you. Anything to add there, Meet?
Yeah, I think that's really good information there, Kathleen. I think what's the usual timeline that you would say for precedented versus non-precedented?
That's a brutal question. So it used to be this lovely process that was fairly quick. But for non-precedent cases, I think the timeline is really fluctuating right now, like 20, 25 weeks. And precedent is like 16 to 19 weeks. So you're definitely saving like months of time if you have precedent. So Arusha is asking, can you please explain precedent again? So pretty much what it means is, Arusha, do you know anyone from your program who is in Canada working? No. Okay. What about everyone else here? Do you know if someone in your program is in Canada or like prepping for the exam? Do you know anyone that has gone through your program and they're prepping for the exam? Okay. Lots of yeses. Lots of people. Beautiful. So this means you have precedent. Okay. So this means that when the CAPR goes to assess your information, they've already done it for someone else. So it's pretty easy for them to say like, yeah, your schooling's good. We already did this kind of case assessment for someone similar to you, right? That's pretty much all it means. If you don't have precedent, it just means that they have no one kind of to reference and they've got to start from scratch looking at everything that your school does. Okay. For the most part, I feel like a lot of people do have precedent. It's kind of rare when I find someone who doesn't have precedent. But this we'll talk about the form, Surushi. So hopefully we'll kind of answer that for you. Okay, so the CAPR has 5 kind of avenues or 5 criteria that they look at when you are going through the credentialing process. So let's talk about all of them. Verification of identity, equivalent education, supervised clinical practice, language proficiency, and knowledge of the Canadian healthcare system. Okay, so first off, honestly, super easy. Doesn't really need explaining. Verification of identity through authentic and valid documentation. So your identity is checked and verified on all forms and documents that you submit. Meet anything to add with that one?
I think the big thing is, Caitlin, with verification, the first step that I did was I verified that my name was spelled correctly on all my documents, essentially my passport, my degree, and all the other relevant document. That was really key there.
Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, it's not really the best story to tell you, but I can tell you a little story. So I work with someone who has a name that she's chosen to work by. It's Tiffany. And then she has her kind of name that is on birth certificate, all those other documentations. I'm not sure what the name is, but it is different than Tiffany. So she went through the credentialing process using everything by her legal name. That was, whatever that name was. She then on her app, so she got her credentialing done, she got her credentialing approved, and then she went to apply for the written exam after everything was approved. And so on that approval, she wrote her English name, Tiffany, as well as her other name. On the documentation, sent it in. And on the day of the exam, like she had studied, she had done everything on the day of the exam. She showed up, she showed her identification, and on her identification, it had her name that was not Tiffany. Even though the paper said both her kind of legal name and Tiffany, they wouldn't let her do the exam because she had applied for the exam with her English name too. So she had to go back, do all the papers again to apply for the written, and didn't get to write until the next exam. So Meet is so right in saying, check which name you're using and stick with that name the whole time. Do not change. Okay, I'm just looking at the chat box, had a change of name. If you are applying from India, you need to submit a notarized letter with any modifications. Yes, thank you. That's very helpful I'm so happy you're here, Saley. Okay, let's keep going. The equivalent education level. Again, this pretty much just means that you've completed a university level entry to practice degree in physiotherapy. Okay, your credentials have to be equivalent to either a bachelor's degree in Canada and must be physiotherapy and must allow you to practice in your country. So as easy as this sounds, again, I've actually had a lot of people reach out to me and say, I don't have a clinical physiotherapy degree, but I do have a research physiotherapy degree. And so the simple questions I usually ask are you able to practice physio in your home country as a clinician? And a lot of them will say, no, I'm able to do research, which then you're not going to get approved. So if you are able to do physiotherapy in your home country, given your schooling, then you should meet the equivalent education level. Now, there are a few little caveats. One of the big ones is supervised clinical practice. So with supervised clinical practice, you need to have completed at least 1,025 hours of supervised clinical practice in your physio program. So this looks like at least 100 hours in MSK, 100 hours in neuro, and 40 hours in cardio resp. Now, I want to ask a question. Has anyone here been paid for their clinical practice hours? Even a very nominal amount or a small amount. Has anyone been paid for them? Okay, seeing lots of yeses here. So maybe you can help me with this one, but my understanding is that the CAPR does not accept those hours if they have been paid. Do you know anything
Yeah,
about
there
this?
was some confusion there, Caitlin. But I think the big thing that they are looking for, um, if you would consider those hours after you have received your degree, they won't consider those hours. But towards your clinical placement or clinical practice, which in India they call it internship, if your internship is paid, then they would accept those hours because you haven't received the degree yet.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. There was a
Yeah.
situation in the UK. I did see some people to start saying they're from the UK. And can you just say hi in the chat box again? I just want to see what your names were. I'll let you do that as I tell the story. But hi, Jessica. Perfect. So Jessica, maybe you can tell me if you relate to the story. Tianda, you can tell me if you relate. So I was just talking with one of the clinical supervisor or clinical directors of placement at Brunel University. And they were telling me that there was a situation where at the start of the pandemic, the NHS was got into a very unfortunate situation where a student on placement actually passed away from COVID. Now, the person did not have insurance because they hadn't been paid for their placements. So there was no insurance set up for them. So how they combated this is they paid students going into placement during the pandemic. They paid them a very, very small amount so that if something did happen, they were covered under this insurance program. Okay. So the issue was at that time, or we're not dealing with this right now, but we were very recently dealing with this, where students would come to us and say, I'm not getting approved for my full 1,025 hours because I've been paid for part of this, even though it was like really just a loophole to try to work around this insurance issue. I have been confirmed through multiple sources that the CAPR has kind of moved past this, and they have allowed this as long as exactly what Meet said. It's before they graduated from their program. Tianda, Jessica, is this something, Surbi, is this something that you heard about? Okay, so I'm going to read something that someone sent in. Yes, the class prior to me, graduated in 2020, was paid for their final placements for insurance purposes. My class was held off placement because they were changing things for placement insurance. Yeah, so this was a little bit of an issue in the UK. And as I said, I know that students were definitely dealing with this kind of issue through the CAPR. But again, my understanding is this whole kind of confusion around paid and non-paid placements for the most part has been cleared up. Okay, just trying to catch up in the chat box, see if anything is important to read there. Alrighty, so 100 of those hours must be in MSK, 100 must be in neuro, and at least 40 have to be in cardio resp. Okay, so some questions we're getting is, does the internship need to have described the hours spent in different areas, or would it just be an internship level letter? Can I pass that question off to you, Meet?
Sure. So when you complete the internship, you will have to submit number of hours that you have worked in each department, whether that is musculoskeletal, neurological, cardiorespiratory, community physiotherapy. They need all the hours that you have worked in each department and the total number of hours as well, along with the research, of course.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. I see, Prayesha, you're answering some questions, and I so appreciate that. Just make sure you're sending it to everyone. Otherwise, it's just coming to us. Okay, let's move on past this. So, I will say, when you don't meet the required hours of supervised practice, you may be able to address those gaps, having worked hours as a physio, as long as it's recognized as prior learning when the applicant has kind of a minimum of 820 hours in clinical practice. So there are some ways around this if you're not reaching these hours. So don't get totally upset if your program didn't do this, especially during COVID. I know that there was a lot of different issues. But yeah, anything to add with that? Me?
No.
Okay, cool. Arushi, I'm seeing a comment saying, some of my seniors said that if you have done your master's, do not mention that in the forms because that will delay the process. Do you think this will affect it? Seniors have said that you just need at least hours of practice that is completed by bachelor's. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, and I
Okay.
agree to that. I think there is a difference when you are doing your credentialing. Try not to mention about your master's degree, master's program, because in Canada, physio is a master's degree, anyways. And then in India, you have bachelor's degree as well. So what CAPR needs is only your bachelor's degree. They don't need your master's degree. But when you do go for immigration purposes, they will need your bachelor's and master's degree.
Okay. Okay. A follow-up question to that is, if the hours are less in the bachelor's degree, will the CAPR consider the clinical hours in post-professional or master's degree?
No,
No.
because then you will have the degree of bachelor's program anyways, right? So after that, they won't consider that.
Okay. Do you know what people are meaning when they say freshers? A lot of people are using this term. I don't know what freshers mean.
So I think freshers, what they mean with that, new graduates, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. The lingo. I don't know the lingo. Okay. Keep putting your questions in. If I do miss a question, please just type it again. There's a lot of comments that are just coming to me, not to everyone. So if I miss something, please ask again. Okay, language proficiency. So if you completed your schooling in Australia, the United States, New Zealand, Ireland, South Africa, the UK, or France, you do not need to complete a language proficiency test. Okay, hear me say this. I know this sounds silly again, a lot of these things are just really fine little points. But again, this is something that a lot of people waste time doing when they don't need to. Okay. If you completed your entire primary and secondary school education in Canada, you also don't need to complete a language proficiency test. So who here right now is under these categories where they don't need to do it? Can you say me? There's got to be some people that have done there. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I should be seeing lots of me's. There's a lot of people here now. So, please pay attention to this. If you're part of those kind of countries, completed your school in those countries, or you're originally from Canada, don't waste your time doing this. Okay. Okay. Another question coming in is, if I'm applying from the UK after completing a master's, do you only not mention master's if you have completed all your schooling in the UK? I've completed a bachelor's in something else in Canada. Do you know the answer to that, Meet?
No. Yeah.
I think the person who sent that in, do you mind letting me know what school you're from? Oh, it's always like that time where we wait for the delay. Okay, yeah. Queen Margaret University has so much precedent. I think that's one of, at least for us at PT Exam Prep, that's probably one of the highest schools that take our course. So I know there's so many Canadians there. So just go through the normal process, put in your master's degree. It's a very quick process for people from Queen Margaret. Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's keep going through this. So if you completed your education in another country than listed in that slide, you must complete all 4 components. So writing, speaking, listening, and reading, and one of the following language tests. Okay, so I wrote them down there. So yeah, anything to add with this?
Yeah, one quick little thing here, Caitlin. I did IELTS, and then in IELTS, you have 2 categories. One is academic and one is general. So what CAPR is looking for? Academics. So while you are registering for the exam, you make sure that if you are registering for the exam, for IELTS exam, for CAPR, then you sign up for the academic one and not for general one. And when you are going for immigration process, then you will need the general IELTS, not academics.
Mm-hmm. That's a really, really great point. And again, another area where people do get confused. So thank you. Any questions around that at all? Or was just saying, I think the CAN test is discontinued. That is good to know. I will look into that and remove it from the slide. Anything else anyone want to add? Okay, let's keep going then. So then you have to do a knowledge of the Canadian healthcare system. So all internationally educated PTs must take an approved online course that includes a formal method of assessment to meet this requirement. So I did reach out to a ton of our past students to just figure out, like, give me the lowdown, talk to me about how long this took. And so the overwhelming majority of candidates got back to me and said, do the University of Alberta course.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'd say 99% of people said that. It is some of the comments, I'm going to read it. Some of the comments that people told me is that it's really easy to follow. They found their course deadlines really comfortable. Once you enroll after starting the credentialing process, which we could talk about because I don't know if that's changed, payment can be done through credit or debit. They offer different monthly sessions throughout the year. A lot of people told me that they enrolled as soon after their credentialing application was acknowledged, not necessarily approved, but acknowledged. The course timeline was 6 weeks, but when I was like, did it really take you 6 weeks? Most people said, no, it took me about a week, and it was about 3 to 4 hours per day. So pretty quick, right? Basically what you have to do in the course is there's a session, on each of the kind of subjects that you're required to do. Then you have to do an assignment and a quiz. And that's it. So again, you can finish it in about probably 15 to 20 hours based on that calculation. Anything to add there, mate?
Yeah, so for OIEPB course, Caitlin, I did that from University of Toronto, and that was 6 weeks again, and it was live course, and they had us divided in the team, all the registrants essentially, and because the course was live, it was not self-paced. So they decided the date and everything on which everyone has to show up online. I think, and that time I was not aware of University of Alberta course. So
that's why we do webinars like this, right? Yeah, I have heard a lot of people talk about that University of Toronto course, and they're just turned off by the nature of it not being self-paced, right? You do have to show up. There are kind of, I've heard too, there's like, you can't move ahead the time, the kind of tasks are blocked. So you have to do it based off that time. So yeah, maybe not the best option for some people if that doesn't work for you.
Right.
Okay. Some questions. In Pakistan, a bachelor's degree has upgraded to a DPT, and to become equivalent to that level, they have introduced a PPDPT. Will CAPR consider that degree in the credentialing process? I don't know the answer to this. Do you know the answer to that?
No, unfortunately.
Sorry, Deborah, I don't know the answer to that, but yeah, sorry. Okay. What's the difference between two programs from the U of T? Do you know what they mean by that?
I think one of them.
Oh, sorry. I see the OA. Yeah. You go.
Okay. One of them, Caitlin, I guess that was the bridging program, and it was for about 6 months. And then you can do that course while you are in Canada as a student. And the course that I did, that was 6 weeks course, for which you don't have to be on student permit to do that course. That was the big thing there.
The bridging course, I feel like we could take half a second and talk about that. But the bridging course, I have talked to students who don't necessarily need to do it, but they take it because they just feel like they don't have enough skills from their home country. So they go and take it. Truthfully, I haven't heard a lot of people be very happy with that process. I've heard that the course is very, very basic, doesn't prep you for the exam. And, maybe is a good kind of bridge to entry-level practice, but there's so many other ways to become a good physio that I don't think you need to spend 6 months and a lot of money doing this. So if you are in the situation where you're kind of teetering whether or not you should do the bridging course, definitely reach out to me. Let's talk. Some people are a good candidate for it, but I'm going to say the majority of people I've talked to that did it are like, yeah, I don't know that it was the best use of my time. Have you heard anything similar?
Yeah, I have. That's what they had to say, that they didn't feel any difference after doing the course, that they have more skill set towards passing their written exam.
The one nice thing about it is there is clinical placements on it, which I have heard people really do enjoy. But again, it's pretty easy to get a job in Canada. So if you're willing to just volunteer your time, maybe shadow, you're going to get a lot of experience there too. So ultimately, with anything in life, the opportunities will come if you go and reach out for them, right? So if you're having a hard time finding volunteer positions or, finding places that you can work as a PTA, for the most part, it usually just means you've kind of done a crappy job at reaching out places, if I'm going to be totally blunt. or, your resume is just littered with mistakes, or you haven't presented yourself well. But for the most part, if you're, a professional, you dress professional, you have a professional attitude and work ethic, you're going to be able to get these positions.
Right.
Okay. Rushi is saying, I'm doing the OIEPB. It's my 5th week, second to last. It's very easy to handle, very well organized and thought. The discussions are awesome. Okay. There is a big comment here. Okay. Iris is saying, hi, I'm an internationally educated physio and a pediatric physiotherapist. Oh, I know Iris. And I joined PT exam prep and aced the PCE written at my first attempt in November. Now I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and seeking work under supervision. Can you give me some advice on how to find a job? Because I need to accumulate 1,200 hours of work under the supervision in 1 year. So this is because of this whole fiasco around the practical exam. I find it not easy to find a job here, as not many clinics are willing to take in exam candidates. I've tried hospitals, post 2, but many are not willing to set up an interview. This is a heavy question, not necessarily related to what's going on in this exam. So Iris, I totally appreciate that question. I'm going to write it down. And at the end of the webinar, we will come back and talk about that. Okay. Alrighty, I am going to pass off the microphone here to Meet, and he's going to go through forms A, B, C, and D and give you some kind of just an overview of the main things and little tricks and tips that you want to look out for when doing these forms. So take it away.
Sure. Thank you, Caitlin. All right. So for the credential process that you have to do with CAPR, so these are the forms that you would be filling out essentially, and there are 4 major forms. There might be some other forms associated with it, but these are the 4 major forms essentially. So we'll go over each forms now. So if I can, Caitlin, if you can go on the next slide, please. Perfect. All right. So first form is Form A, which is very straightforward. And then this is the application form. In this form, what they are asking about is your demographic detail. And the big question in this form is whether this is your first time doing the initial application or you are trying to reopen your file with CAPR. So if you have done the credential process in the past, or if you have applied for it, but your file is closed now because you couldn't complete the process, are you trying to reopen your file, or this is your first time applying for the initial application? This is what they are asking you. And again, here, when they're asking you the name here, please make sure that you will be asked for identity document. And for the most part, everyone will end up giving the passport for that. So you make sure your name on the application form and passport is matching up there. So we don't want to put something here which is not matching up with the passport. Otherwise, there will be delay in the application again with CAPR. And then again, same thing, address for address as well. Please make sure the address that you are giving to CAPR. If you are not in Canada, then please make sure the address that you are giving to them is the address that you have on the passport, so that they can right away verify that. If you can go on the next slide there. Perfect. In the question 6, they are asking about the name of the institution where you completed your physiotherapy degree from, start date, end date, year of graduation, and full title of degree and language as well there. Now, the big thing is here, I think this is key here. The end date and the month and year of graduation, they might be different, and which is completely okay. This was really big confusing area for me, that the month and year of graduation, you will see that on your degree, and the end date, which would be the last date of your clinical placement or internship. So after completing the clinical placement or internship, your university might about 2 or 3 months to give you the degree, and then arrange the convocation and everything. So the convocation date is the year and month of graduation right here. And question 7, now, as we can see the note there, they have increased the credentialing fees starting this year.
Like so much.
Yeah.
Brutal.
It used to be $1,077, but now it is $1,415.
And then they increased it to, in 2020, they increased it to $1,088, like $11 increase.
Yeah.
And now they've increased it by like $400.
$400, yeah.
Sorry, go on.
And just below that, they are asking, or they are giving you the options on essentially how would you like to pay. And I think if you are not in Canada, paying by the credit card is the most easiest way to pay them. Again, be really careful with the payment methods. If the payment is not going through for some reason, again, that will delay your application process. And in question 8, they are asking about the final result of your credentialing process will be sent to you by courier. And then if you are in Canada, then you would end up selecting domestic here, for which you have to pay $45. And if you are not in Canada, then you would be paying $125 for that as well. And question 9 was a tricky question here for me. Because I didn't know where I will be staying. So this is the area where this is the question I would say that they are asking you about. Do you have a plan yet on where you would be living in Canada? While I was applying for my credentialing, I was in Ontario, and I liked Ontario. So I just put Ontario there as the first preference, and then BC as second and Alberta as third. But again, you get to pick and choose there. But do at least 3 options there. That's what they are saying there. Or you can do all 10 of them as well. If you can go on the next slide.
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing before going on. So we've had one person say that this form is actually a little bit old. There is a new form that is out. And you are correct. The CAPR may ask you to resubmit your forms if you are using this one. So the reason why we went with this is because this is definitely this is the form that Meet used. So the differences between the forms are very, very minor, but if you're looking at this and it doesn't perfectly match up to yours, that's why. But we wanted to do this because this is the one that, Meet used, but there's really no difference. It just looks slightly different. Okay. Awesome. I will move forward.
Perfect. And then in the end, after reading everything, just make sure you have your signature on file, on the form, and then the date as well. And then you would be mailing out this form. Do not email them. You have to mail them like a physical hard copy to this following address here to CAPR, along with form B and C, of course. So if you can go on the next file, and then this form is essentially you are giving them the consent to charge your Visa or MasterCard, and then so that they can charge you $1,415 towards the credentialing fees. That's what this form is all about, essentially. Yeah.
Okay. So just any questions around Form A? Some people are asking about the acronyms that were used at the bottom here. So Yukon territories, BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and PEI. I think I got all those. It was like a quiz for me. Any other questions around this? Okay, Rushi is asking, my family is shifting to a new address in another 3 months. Can I mention my current address and proceed? I'm currently in India.
Yeah, Rushi, you can still do the process, but sometimes this kind of situation may delay the process because there might be back and forth communication between you and CAPR. And then you have to essentially explain your situation. You will still get through the process, but it might take longer time than usual. It might take few extra weeks there.
Okay. Please clear about the convocation date thing.
Convocation, yeah.
Yes.
So let me give you my example here. I completed the last day for me at my clinical placement or internship was in March. And then May was our graduation ceremony or convocation. So in my degree, they have written the graduation date of May of that year and not March of that year. But I would say that in the forms, in the form A, I mentioned that the end date as March of that year, and then the date of graduation would be May of that year.
Awesome. Okay, we'll do one more question, move on to Form B. I will likely have already moved to Canada by the time my credentialing is approved. Will that affect the process?
No, that won't affect the process. You just have to change. There is one form for CAPR, which you won't be seeing that form in the presentation today. But the form is all about change the address. So you just have to download the form from the CAPR website, complete the form. There are all the instructions written in the form and how to email them, the email address and everything. You just complete the form, email it to them, and then they'll be able to change the address. And there are no associated fees with that.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to move on past that. Thank you to all the people who are also answering questions in the chat box. There's a lot of very knowledgeable people here, so that's awesome. Okay, so let's go on to Form B.
Perfect. So Form B is the checklist, is the application checklist. And then again, same thing. First, they will ask you the name, surname, and given name. Again, making sure that we are writing the same name that we have on the passport there. And then I think if you can go back again.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to press it.
Okay. I think this is the big area of confusion here, former last name. And then many times I have seen many of my peers, many of my friends, they got confused here. If they have changed their last name after they got married. So this would be area, again, you have to keep an eye at. And then if you are, whatever you are writing your last name and first name, it has to be same on your degree, on your passport. And if not, then you have to officially present the legal document and notarize that you have changed your name to CAPR along with that.
Awesome. Okay.
And then just because this form is the checklist itself, so you will have checklist of all the documents that you have to mail out to CAPR, and very important. So if you don't have any of the forms with you or any of the listed document here, please make sure you have that before you mail out to them. Otherwise, again, that will delay the whole process, and it might take few extra weeks, which might be frustrated sometimes. So completed application form. Application form was essentially the Form A, and you have signed and dated. And then this is the payment information. So for which we filled out the credit card information form. And then identity documents. This is essentially the Form C. And with Form C, you have to attach your identity document, government issued identity, which is valid. So if you are sending them the passport, make sure that your passport is valid, and then your passport sized photograph, and copy of the official identity document there along with Form C. And then this is what we were talking about in the previous slide, proof of legal name change, and please make sure that you have notarized that from the lawyer. And then all the other documents that you have to mail out to them, like for example, copy of your degree, and copy of internship completion certificate, and all the other relevant documents that they have listed here, um, all have to be notarized, because we are not sending them the original document. We are making copies of it. And then they want to check that what you have in the copied document, it's same on the original document. So that's the big thing for them. And this is why they are asking you for the notarized copies here for all the documents that you are sending. And then again, same thing here, clinical internship certificate. And then, yeah, same thing. You have to do the notary for that as well. Perfect. And this is again the Form B, but second part of it. Right. And please follow the instructions on the form here. When they're asking you not to staple any part of the form, please follow everything that they are saying. As we went over this, that do not include your original document. Therefore, we are doing the notary. And then do not send them the transcript or the mark sheets yourself, because your university has to send them that. If you send them yourself, they won't be able to approve that towards your credential process.
Okay. So the other big things here are just the checklists, academic records. If you have sent them a notarized copy for yourself, your institution can skip it. And then, yeah, the last part is just requesting the IELTS to send it to CAPR directly. I think that's it for Form B then, right? Any questions with Form B? Looks like we're okay. Okay, let's go on to Form C. Take it away.
All right. So with Form C, as we discussed earlier, it's an identity documents and then instructions for those. What they need essentially your photo, your full legal name, your date of birth, and your signature. For the most part, I think passport is the one document which has everything. Making sure that we have the clear copies of our passport. They don't need the full thing. They just need first and last page of the passport. That's what they need there. So just make clear copies of passport, color copies if it is possible, and then that will be attached with the Form C here. And making sure that if you are sending your passport, it is valid and can be verified as well with the source, which you will have no problem doing that. So big thing is, again, making sure passport is valid. Whatever your name is on the passport is on name on the forms as well. And then you are making the clear copies of it. This is the part which is essentially asking about if you have changed your name because you got married, then you would have to attach your marriage certificate as well. And then that too, you have to do the notary for that as well, and attached with Form C there, your marriage certificate. And yeah, this is again, very important here. They don't want you to click the picture of your passport size photograph and then send it over to them. Please take a new picture of yourself, passport sized, which has to be in past 6 months only. And on the it has to be colored picture with good quality, full face, and very clear. And original, not taken from an existing photo. And on the back of the photo, you have to write your name and you have to sign as well with the pen on the back of the photo.
Okay, awesome.
And perfect. So this is the last part of Form C. Just write your name and then clip. As we have seen the instructions before, do not use the stapler. So just clip, use the paper clip there for the picture there. And then that's it.
Okay, so some questions here. Does the passport copy need to be notarized?
Yes, I did that. They didn't ask for it, but then I still did everything just to make sure.
Yeah, I feel like what I've heard students do is when they go to the notary, they just have everything ready. So it's just done,
Exactly.
done,
Yeah.
done, right? I have done this procedure. I wish this webinar was before. It would have been so helpful. I needed that help, but happy for all the others getting help. That's nice. If married but no name change, do we still have to send the marriage certificate?
No. If you are married but your name is not changed legally, then you don't need to send the marriage certificate.
Awesome. Okay. On to Form D, almost there. Oops. Oh, I'm click happy again. There we go.
All right. So Form D is the document request form. And then the first part of this form has to be filled by you. So right here, all the beautiful instructions here, applicant, complete this section, nice and straightforward. Just write your name, date of birth, and your student ID number. Student ID number can be found on your internship completion certificate or on your degree as well. Something to consider that. And then the next part of the Form D has to be filled by the university or by the principal of your or by the dean of your university directly. And then they will be Form D, you will not be mailing it out, but your university has to mail out to CAPR along with your supervised clinical hours. If you mail out Form D and supervised clinical hours to CAPR by yourself, they won't accept that. Many universities will be like, oh yeah, we'll make the package and everything, we'll hand it to you, and you can mail out to CAPR. It doesn't work that way. And with me, they did verify that. So my university, when the clerk went to mail out the Form D and supervised clinical hours, the Indian Post, they ask for the identity, government issued identity document from the clerk. And then CAPR did verify that document with Indian Post. So they are very strict with that. So make sure you are not mailing out to them. Perfect. And this is the checklist, document to be sent directly to CAPR. And document checklist. This is the checklist, but for the institution, for your university, for your college, not for you. And then, but this comes in handy when you are requesting them what all stuff they need to do, what all document they have to do it for you. So this comes handy then as well. Yeah, and then the last part right here, attested copy of the clinical internship certificate, and then that's applied for only certain countries, not for everyone.
So Alicia is just saying this is a very important step. I did this mistake and had to do it all over the process again. So don't post it yourself. And I can definitely agree with that. I think this is one of the bigger areas for mistakes for sure.
Perfect. And this is how your document request form will look like. This won't be your name, but this will be the name of the person who is completing the Form D. So essentially, who is representing your institution. It might be your principal, head of physiotherapy department, or your dean as well. And then they will be able to complete this. You might never see this because they will complete that and then they have to directly mail out to CAPR. But again, one of my friends, they didn't have the stamp right here. So CAPR didn't accept that and they had to do it again. So making sure that when we are requesting all the documents and everything, we are very clear with our request on what we want on our documents. So making sure that we are asking them to seal or stamp here on the form as well.
And a lot of universities have done this many times. So if you go to a university where you know there's a lot of people who have in the past come to Canada, this is a pretty smooth process. Places again in like I'm just going to say like Queen Margaret University, they have people in these roles who this is part of their job. Like they know what they're doing. So don't get too worried that they're doing everything right on their side, unless, you're one of the first people to do it.
Right. Perfect.
One question, sorry, Benil's just asking, is head of physiotherapy or college principal should fill out this form?
Sorry, if you can repeat that question again.
So should the head of physiotherapy or college principal fill out this form?
It doesn't matter. But the higher the authority, the better it is. Because sometimes what happens is if the head of physiotherapy department, they are filling out the form, but they don't have the authority to fill out that form, then again, CAPR won't accept that. But in some institution will give them the authority to do it. As long as they have the authority, that's what matters essentially.
Awesome. And then Arushi's saying, do we give this form to them to fill?
Yeah, you have to give it to them to fill out. Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect. And in the last section of this Form D, it's essentially asking about the name of the physiotherapy institution, name of the university, address. And this email section is again very important. Exactly. So making sure that they are not providing their personal email. It has to be from the institution, and it should be like rguhs.ac.in, muhs.ac.in, that kind of email versus their personal email. That's very important again there. Perfect. These are the questions, last few questions that they are asking in the Form D from the representative who is filling out this form from your institution, which are very straightforward. I think this was the only area which trigged, at least to my university here, number of credits transferred from previous education, if applicable. So because in India, you don't have credit system. So just mention that there is no credit system here. And what would be the next step after completing the bachelor's degree? It's master's degree in physiotherapy. That's what they're asking. And then select here other and write the name of the university. Perfect. And again, here, this is really big. And we talked about this in Form A as well. What they are looking for essentially, the clinical physiotherapy degree, not the research degree. So they want to make sure that in your home country, after you complete your physiotherapy degree, are you able to independently practice physiotherapy or not? And that's what they are looking for here.
Okay, so 2 questions. Is this the same credit hours written in the transcript of your bachelor's?
So like here, they are not asking about the hours.
Yeah.
So what they're asking about is whether or not you will be able to practice independently after completing this degree or not.
Okay. And then another question we're getting about this is, what if you have already done your master's in India? What next step would you mention?
So if you have already done the master's, next step could be PhD. There, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So any specific questions about Form D? I know we've kind of, oh, wait, no, we're not totally done. 2 more things.
Yeah. These are again very straightforward questions. They just want to make sure that what's your scope of practice in your home country, whether or not you are allowed to make a physiotherapy diagnosis, whether or not you are allowed to treat the patient independently. Do you need doctor's referral to treat the patient all the time, or you can work without physician's prescription in India or in any other country that you are from? And can you discharge the patient from your physiotherapy care, or do you have that decision making power essentially to discharge the patient, or your doctor has to decide that? That's what they are looking for. And for most of the times, the answer is yes, if you are from India. And then this is the part where, going back to the question, Caitlin, this is the part where hours will play a role. And this is the supervised clinical practice. So again, just to keep everything organized, Form D and supervised clinical practice form, these 2 things has to be done by the university and with the seal stamp of university, and then university has to ship to CAPR, not you. And then this is essentially the breakdown of all the hours that you have done in your clinical practice, total number of hours, and then breakdown of hours in musculoskeletal, neurological, cardio-resp, and other as well.
Okay, awesome. Akshita is asking, can we start the process on the basis of a provisional bachelor's degree?
No, because they will need your degree, copy of your degree, notarized copy of your degree to complete the process.
Okay, awesome. So we have a few other forms to go through here. We've just categorized it as other forms because they don't have names as such. Yeah.
Right. So, so this form is essentially for the career package that you want to do. And again, same thing, your college must submit attested documentation regarding your clock hours, which is your supervised clinical hours. The information should be submitted with Form D, document request form that we just talked about this anyway. So.
Okay, Javira is asking a question that I don't know the answer to, but let's see if you do. So does the CAPR accept an IQAS assessment of the FSW applicants? It is mentioned on their website. Have you seen anyone have this situation?
No, unfortunately, I don't know the answer for this because I didn't do the FSW immigration process and everything. I think reaching out to CAPR would be the best thing that they can do.
Okay, awesome.
Perfect. And these are the last few things that you have to fill out. Same thing, your name and date and student ID. Yeah, and then your university has to fill out this section with the stamp here, very straightforward. Great.
And kind of covered this, but
yeah. Yeah, if you can keep going, Caitlin. Yeah. And then, this is again very important document right here, graduation verification form. Essentially, what they're asking is whether the degree was handed to the student or not. So going back to the question that's, can we apply for credential process with provisional degree? Because we need this graduation verification. So we cannot do that until you are graduated successfully.
Okay, there's another form for the supporting supervised clinical practice. So you can either fill out the form or you can actually send in the transcript. So I'll show you the option. Which one did you go for?
I had to create my own form. So I did that, not form, but then just a table of number of hours that I have worked in each area. And that I created very similar to this, Caitlin. Yes. I created that on Excel sheet and MS Word. So.
Okay, awesome. And then last one, pretty simple, this one.
Yeah, credit card authorization form.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, two other questions and then I'll kind of take it over. So what if the internship completion certificate is in weeks?
Is in what, sorry?
Weeks.
Okay. Internship completion certificate, they need, like, they have mentioned there that total number of weeks that they have done. That's what the question is, or?
Yeah. Ishita, maybe you can kind of clarify. She said yes. Yeah.
So they haven't completed the internship yet. Ishita, do you mind clarifying that? What's your question?
We'll go on to the next one as I type that in. So Hima is saying, can you start the process based on your bachelor's degree while you are still in your final year of your master's degree?
Yes, you can, because while you are doing the credential process, they don't need any information from your master's degree anyways. They just need information from your bachelor's degree.
Okay. I got a transcript from my college where I studied. Should the transcript from university or college, should that be sent for credentials?
Yes, you have to send that for credential, but transcripts, With Form D and supervised clinical hours, your institution has to mail out to CAPR. They won't accept it if you are doing it.
Okay. Another question, or is she just saying, like, what if the internship completion certificate is not in hours, as we need to mention hours? So it's in weeks, not hours.
Right. So that's why I had to create my own. What they need essentially is the breakdown of each area that you have worked in and total number of hours that you have worked in. Although it might be in weeks, but you have to go back and see how many hours every week you have worked in. And then just do the math and then attach extra piece of document there and making sure that you have seal and signed by the institution as well there. They will be able to accept that.
Perfect. Okay, final question before we kind of move on here is, can you start your process if you are in the 5th/final year of your bachelor's degree?
You can, but as I said, you will be needing degree, right? You will be needing a copy of degree, but you can start the process, but your process might not be completed because you don't have degree yet. So you can start collecting all your documents. You can start filling out the forms and so on and so forth, but do not pay for the credential yet because you do not have all the documents with you.
Okay, so we're going to go over the big bad question about costs. So here is a breakdown of some of the costs. So the credentialing application fee is $1,415. You'll then need to send your final assessment results by courier to the location outside of Canada, which, as everything, all costs have gone up. So this has recently gone up too. Then you have your written exam registration fee and then licensing fee. So again, this is pretty much like all inclusive. That's going to take you all the way to being able to register. So this is going to be $35.81 Canadian. Now, there are a few little sneaky costs that could trickle in there. So you have your IELTS fee, potentially the written course with us, which it does range from $1,000 to $1,500. We have had funding as a really cool way to bring down the course in the last few months. So hopefully at the time that you take the course, that is still available. Then you have your university transcript, forms, procurement, and dispatch fees. So altogether with those previous costs come to about $5,000. Now, the only other sneaky cost, and Meet, you could probably talk to this, is paying for the notarization. How much did that cost you?
I think some of the documents, Caitlin, I had to do in Canada as well, and then some of it in India as well. I think in India, it was close to 120 Canadian dollars for everything. But in Canada, I think it was $25 for every document.
Okay. And then the other cost that isn't in here is the healthcare in Canada course. Do you have an estimate of how much you paid for that?
I think I paid 300 something in 2019 for that.
Okay. So as you can see, there's some costs for sure. A fairly all-inclusive assessment or look at this, I'd say you're fairly safe to say it's about $5,500 Canadian. So it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And that's probably the number one complaint we get from candidates, is that it's an expensive process to come back, right? Okay, some other numbers I want to throw at you. So it should take about 1 week to complete the knowledge of the Canadian healthcare system if you're doing the Alberta course. It takes about 19 weeks to receive your final evaluation report after it has been acknowledged that they have been approved if you have precedent. My biggest takeaway here is start the credentialing process as early as possible. Like, seriously, hear me when I say this, it takes forever. There are delays. Start as soon as you can. And then start studying once you have sent in your forms. Okay. Once your forms have been acknowledged, I think this is a good time to start studying. I wouldn't start studying before that because it takes forever. I will tell you, I've talked to so many students who are like, I want to start studying now, and that's fine. But we do need to kind of adapt the written course to reflect that. So typically in our written course, you get a 6-month subscription. we definitely have abilities to extend that based off of purchasing kind of the extension package, which is $250. So the course will either be $1,000 if you want it for 6 months, or if you want the extension package, which comes with 3 mock exams and definitely some kind of more helpful tools, you will be able to have access to your materials. We save for 2 years, but honestly, until you're ready to take the exam for the most part, right? So if you are someone who wants to start early, you definitely can. My biggest advice for people who want more than kind of like 6 months to a year to study, I would not necessarily use the study plan in the course if you're studying that early. I would look at the course materials, figure out what's interesting to you, figure out maybe what's applicable for what area of practice you're currently working in your home country or wherever you are, and study that aspect of the course. I guarantee you, maybe not guarantee you, but like, I feel like for the most part, physios are like this nerdy bunch where like, as soon as we find something we're interested in, we're like, oh, I love this. I want to read more and more and more. And I do feel confident that once you get into the course and you start, you're going to just feel a huge sigh of relief because it's so organized. You know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So you can kind of pick the things that are interesting to you. And then as you get that go ahead that you're good to go for the exam, that's when you can really follow the study plan in the course, which is about a 4.5-month study plan. So definitely a lot of work you can do before you're at that go time. But yeah, anything you want to add to that, Meet?
Yeah, one thing I would say, Caitlin, I think in the beginning of the webinar, you did mention that there are other courses available as well. But I think the big thing with PT exam prep is you get what you pay for. Please don't cheap out on courses. There are other courses all available, but this is the life deciding exam that you are giving. I have seen so many my coworkers or my knowns, they would sign up for other courses. They are unsuccessful in their first attempt, and then in second attempt, they would sign up for PT exam prep, and then they are successful. What they are doing essentially is just delaying the whole process, spending more money, creating stress in their life. Why not just in the first go register for PT exam prep and save yourself a lot of stress, time, money, everything?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And I will say there is a 3 exam limit. So you can only take the exam 3 times. And every time we get results, I get people who contact me and say, the first time I just tried. I thought, let's just see what the exam's like. Let's see if I can get by. So they fail. The second time they're like, I looked at your course. It's a little bit expensive. I saw a cheaper one. I had someone, come to my university. There's a few out there that will come and try to get you really early on. The course was less. So I took that for my second attempt. And then they're on a third attempt situation and they come to us. And this is difficult. If we get you in a third attempt situation, there's so many other factors that come into play. The stress and anxiety alone of being in a third attempt is hard to overcome. And once you get in a third attempt situation, it's hard to pass. It really is. There's just so many other factors. So please, 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 if this is an incredibly expensive process to do, we're hoping with the funding, it brings the course fee down a little bit, which makes it more affordable for people. I would really start budgeting that in. I would just budget an appropriate study plan into the kind of prep. Okay. So there are, again, some questions in the chat box. I'm going to go through one more slide and then we'll answer those questions. I'm hoping to be done in the next 10 minutes. Okay. So, submit your documents and your college documents at the same time to avoid postage delays. Prep and prepare for the IELTS whenever you're confident. Meet already talked about this, that the academic module cannot be used for immigration. Focus on listening and reading if you aren't a strong communicator. Okay. Check your application multiple times to make sure it's correct and completely filled out. Make sure the sender, that doesn't make sense, address is your college and university when sending institutional documents, and follow up with the CAPR via telephone if you sense a delay. I will say email's probably the best, but I do know people who have tried telephone, but email's probably the best there. So ultimately, it brings us back to, we've talked about the credentialing process. Where we help you then is after your credentialing process is underway. I see a lot of questions that are sent directly to me about talk about timeline, right? When should I start studying? And again, my best suggestion is to start studying after your credentials have been acknowledged, not necessarily approved, but acknowledged. I think that's a really good time. I also think that everyone is different. Some people know that they're going to be working full time. They have other, life commitments and they need to start earlier. Not necessarily my favorite method. I do think it's nice to start after this is kind of all underway. But I don't feel like a lot of people listen to me. I feel like a lot of people start really, really early studying. And yeah, again, totally up to you. And I'm more than happy to connect and chat with anyone who does have questions about when they should start. But as I said, I really wouldn't think about prepping until you've gone through this credentialing process and have your papers sent in. I think that's the best time to contact me too. Okay, let's fly through some questions. I'm going to scroll up to kind of where I think we left off. Can the university send all documents in one sealed envelope or has to send separately transcript and form?
No, one envelope.
Oh, yeah. Caitlin, great name, Caitlin. What is the optimum window you normally recommend to start studying for the exam, where you don't overstudy, but you're adequately prepared? So kind of, as I mentioned, I think a great time to start if you're wanting to go early is after your credentials have been acknowledged. If you are someone who can really put in a solid 4.5 month study plan, then I would just wait till your credentials are approved. Then you would select an exam that is at least 4.5 months away, so you can start studying at that time. That does take a special type of person, though, to be honest. It's someone who is going to have a lot of time to study. They can really just focus on this. And not everyone is in that life situation. So that's an ideal time, but sometimes you got to do it differently based off of where you're at. Okay. Benil is asking, is the validity of the IELTS, is it only for 2 years? Is there any problem in that if it expires?
Yeah, so the validity of IELTS is only for 2 years. If your IELTS result is expired and then you are sending or you are asking IDP or British Council to send your expired result, CAPR won't accept that.
Someone here said, I'm very satisfied with the PT exam prep written course. Recommend to everyone. Thank you. That means a lot. That's a fun little comment instead of a question. Dolly is asking, is the IELTS academic or general? Is it need for the PCE exam? Could you please make it clear? I feel like you did make this clear, but.
Academics.
Yeah.
You need academics for exam. Yeah.
Okay. Can you please mention about the precedent thing? I was not able to see that in any of the forms. Also, please clear about remote proctoring. So the precedent is not necessarily mentioned in the forms. It's just something that you would know if you had a senior who is in Canada. Yeah. And then the remote proctoring, that in itself is kind of its own conversation. But the remote proctoring is an option for people who do want to take the exam and they're not in Canada. There are very few spots for in-person exams in Canada. So a lot of people are having to opt for the remote proctoring or even getting pushed from a face-to-face to remote proctoring. There's some pluses and minuses to it. It's a very intense process to make sure that everything in your room is appropriate for the scenario. If you have to go to the bathroom, when you come back, they do the whole kind of screening again. So just to go to the bathroom, you need to add on another kind of 2 to 3 minutes, which can affect your timing. So we really are pushing students to try to get a little quicker at exam taking if they're doing the remote proctoring. But ultimately, it's a great option. And I've heard very few people complain about it. Anything to add there, Meet?
No, because I did it pre-COVID, so I had to go to test center. And
It's like how we're gonna judge life now, pre-COVID versus post-COVID. Okay. If acknowledged, what is the probability of being approved? I don't think that has anything to do with your likelihood of being approved. I think acknowledged just means that they've received everything and you're in the queue. Do you have a different understanding?
No, very similar. Yeah.
How much time is sufficient for preparations? I do think I've touched on that, but again, I will send an email out probably tomorrow or Monday with some more information if you do have questions about that. So yeah. Okay. Is the 19 weeks for confirmation or for acknowledgement? Oh, that's a great question. What's your understanding of that, Meet?
I think 19 weeks is for confirmation, not for acknowledgement. Once they have acknowledged, then they will, within 19 weeks, if you are precedented case, they will either approve or they will let you know that you need to complete a few things there for them to approve it.
Now that time to acknowledgement is a long time
It's a
too. I
long
don't
time.
know the date, the timeline for that, but I do know it's not quick.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm pursuing the healthcare management in Cape Breton University. Should I start my credentials at work permit period? Is if that would be less stressful? I don't know if you know the answer to that.
Yeah, and I did my credentialing. I started my credentialing when I was a student. So you can definitely start. Yeah.
Okay, so another question about precedent and how you would know. If you don't, it's not something that you need to be actively kind of pursuing an answer to. They're going to know. Really easy for them to kind of look up other profiles close to you. If you don't know anyone, then you might just want to assume that you're unprecedented. But as I said, it's pretty rare to be unprecedented. So it doesn't really matter though. It's not something you have to decide. They're going to do that for you. Okay, I'm going to answer one more question and then that is it. So please explain the remote proctoring process. If one room isn't conducive, can you use a hotel room? So I know a lot of people have actually used clinic rooms. Some people have done hotel rooms. For the most part, I think like at your home, you should be able to figure something out unless you have like a studio and no rooms, or like have kids and you don't have the option to have a quiet area. But don't worry too much about the remote proctoring. By the time you get there, things may change. So please don't stress about this. I can definitely tell you that the remote proctoring has not been a stressful process for people. I think it's one of those things that it's unknown. So that's stressful. But as I said, most people who do it, they leave and they're like, it was actually really easy. It was a wonderful option. I got to the comfort of somewhere that I like. So not a stressful thing. So wouldn't worry about that. Okay. I promised that I was going to talk about the clinical exam and my answer for that is so short. So right now the CAPR used to be in charge of doing a national exam, just like for the written, but they did it for the practical. That is since done. The CAPR will not be doing a national exam anymore. It is now up to each college to decide what their standard is going to be. Now we have a whole range of things. We have a screening interview for Ontario that Meet did. That's based off of a bunch of criteria to even be able to be offered a screening interview. In Alberta, you have a face-to-face exam. In BC, you have a virtual exam. In Manitoba, as Iris was saying, there is a kind of convoluted way of needing to get supervised practice hours. I will say the students that seem to be the most satisfied with being an intern are those in Alberta and BC. Having an exam, as crazy as it sounds, it's almost better because you can just get this process done with, right? You're not having to work for a year or more under the supervised kind of practice license. So if you are in a situation where you are able to come to BC or Alberta, I definitely think that that's the trend that we're seeing. Yeah, Ontario is going to have their own exam. They are supposed to be releasing information sometime in May, with the opportunity to take an exam probably next year, maybe in the fall, but I'm not sure. If some questions that people have had, if they are fully credentialed in one province, will it be valid to move to another? So there is definitely conversation out there saying there should be labor mobility. If you come to BC, get licensed, you can go somewhere else. I think that if you did come across an issue, there's definitely ways that you could kind of, cause a fuss and try to get licensed somewhere else. But I think for the most part, BC and Alberta, just getting an exam done, that's probably going to be your best bet for labor mobility. The maritime provinces, Jessica, it sounds like for the most part, it is as supervised practice hours as well. It's quite a few hours. So yeah, again, like I have a physio that I work with at the clinic who just finished their exam in March, found out that they passed and got the opportunity to do the June exam. So they are going to have done their written and done their practical within like March, April, May, June, 4 months. So it definitely having an exam on the table and knowing those dates is nice. Okay. An hour and a half. Oh my gosh, Meet. Thank you for staying so long. I feel like we went way over. Thank you. Thank you. Please, everyone send a thank you to Meet. This was just, he did this out of the kindness of his heart, spending like, an early Saturday morning. So huge thank you. I am going to be posting this on YouTube. So if you do have questions that I'm not answering, you can definitely either reply to the email that I'm going to send you, or you can post in the comments on YouTube. Again, I really appreciate everyone coming and hanging out with us, and a huge, huge, huge thank you to Meet one more time, and everyone who was giving answers in the chat box. That was awesome. I feel like we went through a crazy amount of information. So thank you, Meet.
Hey, you're welcome, Caitlin.
Yes. Okay. Again, if there's anything that we didn't get a chance to answer, definitely shoot us an email and I will do my best to answer you. I have people on the team who have a lot more information on credentialing than me, so I can kind of forward your email to those who need it. But okay. Bye, everyone.